All right, a bank following the rules to the letter, but maybe there should be a little wiggle room sometimes. Like in Steve Valdez's case, the Florida man went to his local Bank of America to cash a check. Well, he doesn't have an account there, but he had his two forms of ID. The bank wanted a thumbprint. That's their fraud prevention policy, but Steve Valdez has no arms. What came next is a little shocking. Steve Valdez joins us now from Tampa this morning. Good to see you.
Hi, Frederica. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Well, thanks so much for recalling the memory of what took place that day, which had to be very humiliating. So,
well, it was a shock to say the least.
Okay, so you go into this Bank of America. Had you been to this Bank of America before, by the way?
Actually, no.
Okay, but you're aware of a policy of having a couple forms of ID, so you brought that. But what happened when they said, we want your thumbprint? How did that conversation then?
Actually, they never got to that point. They looked at my prosthetic hands, and the teller said, well, obviously, you can't give us a thumbprint. I'll be back in a second. And in about 10 minutes, she came back and gave me what their idea of accommodation was.
And what was that?
Well, I could either bring my wife in with me, or I could open up an account with them.
And then what happened in that conversation? What did you say? Well,
I told them that I neither wanted an account with them and couldn't bring my wife in because she was nowhere close by, and it really wasn't part of accommodation, and I asked for a supervisor.
And they asked you to bring your wife in because this was kind of a third-party check. It wasn't necessarily a check made directly out to you.
No, it was made directly out to me.
Then why bring your wife in? What was the explanation?
Because it was her account with their bank.
Okay. All right. So did you ask for management, and what happened from there?
A few minutes later, the manager came out and read me the same policy that I could either bring her in or open up an account with them.
All right, so this is very humiliating, to say the very least. Bank of America has since released this written statement. I want to read it to you. While the thumbprint is a requirement for those who don't have accounts, the bank should have made accommodations. So in a sense, they are saying that maybe this wasn't handled the best way possible, but they do stand behind their policy. How does that apology, or at least that statement, sit with you?
Well, apologies are all fine and good, but their policy itself is still in violation of federal law in the Americans with Disability Act, which says that they're to provide reasonable accommodation.
What would have been a more reasonable accommodation in your view, especially as it pertains to the American Disabilities Act?
Well, certainly, since I had two forms of photo ID, one of which had the same address on it that was on the check itself, I would have thought that a manager could have initialed off on it after checking the IDs and cashed the check.
I guess you won't be doing business at that Bank of America anymore?
I think that's safe to say.
All right. Steve Valdez, thanks for sharing your story.